Amen. That's where Don is today, rejoicing with the Lord. It probably will come as little surprise to you that Don wrote his own biographical sketch. As detailed and organized as he was. So I'm going to read what he wrote, and so there will be some times where it might sound a little awkward, but at the same time I think it'll make a lot of sense to you because it comes from Don. Don was born January 16th, 1935 in Phoenix, Arizona. Born and raised on Glenrose Avenue near 27th Avenue and Indian School Road. This was near the Indian Drive-In Theater. He said that he and his friends on occasion would scoot under the fence to get in free. Sometimes they would get caught and asked to leave. Much time was spent in the open-air skating rink, which was also on 27th Avenue south of Indian School Road. Don attended the old Alhambra Elementary School on Grand Avenue. Don's dad was a brick mason. During the Depression, he couldn't find work, so he started raising sweet potatoes to make a little money. Later, he raised wheat and alfalfa. Don got his fill of sweet potatoes since his mom found many ways to fix them. In later life, they were not his favorite thing. He remembers visiting with the hobos when they came and settled for a while on the ditch bank. His mother on occasion would feed them when they came by and asked for food. He also visited with the German POWs that came to clean the laterals. They were guarded, but the guards didn't care if we talked to them. During the war years, he and some of his friends collected newspapers for the war effort. His mom would pick up cantaloupes at the packing shed and put them in his wagon, and he would sell them on 27th Avenue. He was in several school plays throughout grade school. Don took leather tooling classes during junior high years and made many wallets, belts, and purses, which he sold and also gave some as gifts. By the way, I hear that he had made one more leather wallet, which is to be placed in the tapestry auction a little later this year. I'm assuming that will fetch a good price. During his senior year, he designed the program, Don attended West Phoenix High School. He did several art pieces that won Gold Key awards. They traveled around several states before returning back to him. During his senior year, he designed the program cover for the junior-senior prom. He also worked on the 1953 yearbook, designing the section pages and helping silkscreen them. During the summers of 51 and 52, he worked in the freezer at the Swift ice cream plant, which was located at 27th Avenue and Camelback Road. Don attended 2 years at Phoenix Junior College and also worked for a silkscreen company. He spent 1 year at Grand Canyon College. He did art for the yearbook and graduated then from Arizona State University in 1957 with a BA in commercial art and secondary education. Don joined the Arizona National Guard in 1957 and did his basic training at Fort Ord by Monterey, California. He was there for 6 months. During my 6 weeks of basic training, on day 2, the company commander came out where we were all lined up and asked, "Is there anyone here who can type?" I was told never volunteer for anything. He asked again if anyone could type, and I thought, how hard could that be? So I raised my hand, stating I could type. I had 2 semesters of typing in high school and was pretty good. He called me out and took me to his office where he told me what he wanted done. When I finished the first job, he gave me another. After I completed what he wanted, he sent me over to the supply sergeant to help him out. He also told me to report back to his office after breakfast the next morning, which I did. That was my routine for the rest of basic training. I worked for the company commander and the supply sergeant. I typed, redid the day room with new pictures, painted frames, etc., helped the supply sergeant. When it was time for me to do something they thought was important, such as firing my weapon or going through the gas chamber, etc., I was driven to the area, I did what I was to do, and driven back to the company for the rest of the day doing whatever the company commander wanted. At the end of basic training, I was to go to artillery training, but instead, I was put in headquarters company. While there, I worked on charts and maps, Also, during this time, I was sent to the art department where I redid all the large training signs for field training. These signs were made of 4x8 sheets of plywood. I would draw the different designs and paint them. I also did small posters of different plant life so the troops wouldn't get poison ivy and poison oak, etc. One week during this time, we had bivouac, and the headquarters company had to be on the field, or in the field. My boss, the major, told me to drive him out there in his Jeep. I told him I had night blindness and could not see without lights. He told me the red night lights on the Jeep would be enough for me to see, so I gave it a try. I'd only driven about 2 blocks when the major told me to pull over and told me he would drive. And he said, "You salute." That was it for night driving. The rest of my time was working in the office, making charts and maps. He was in National Guard for 8 years. Don grew up attending College Park Baptist Church, starting at about age 10. In 1957, he moved to Royal Palms Baptist Church, where he is a charter member. He's also a deacon. In fact, he's been called Deacon Emeritus. I don't know if that was an official act or just one by virtue of honor. He and Hildy McCarthy Cluthy were married November 18th, 1967. She had a 5.5-year-old son, Gregory. Don and Hilda had a son, Ronald, September the 7th, 1969. Don was in silkscreen printing from 1955 to 1968 when he sold to his partner. He took courses to get his elementary teaching certificate and taught at Simpson School for 27 years. Don retired in 1992, traveled to Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, many other places. Here's one little tidbit that wasn't in Don's account, but was in Hilda's. Don did not like change. He bought his house at age 22 and never moved. He joined Royal Palms in 1957 and never moved. He finished college and went to teaching and taught at one school for 27 years. He sat in the same place every Sunday at church. And of course, he was married to one woman for 48 years. Some of you at times might have seen Don close his eyes during church. You might have assumed he was sleeping. But he told Hilda on more than one occasion, "I am not asleep. I just had my eyes closed." See if that works for you. I think he slept through many of my sermons, Chris. I received an email this week from Pastor Charles, and I thought it might be appropriate to share. Christy and I have many good memories of Don and Hilda. Don encouraged me as a pastor of the church and of my own family. I remember when I introduced myself to Royal Palms during my first visit to the church in 2006. Don affirmed my passion for my wife and for my children, whom I introduced to the senior adult group. I shared in a personal way about each of my daughters, and that was important to Don. Don and Hilda befriended Christy and I by teaching us how to play the card game Hand and Foot. We enjoyed friendly, unhurried conversations because that is a long game to play. Over the years, we could see the grace and faith that God gave to Don. Don and Hilda's perseverance and strength were a quiet struggle with Don's health. They walked together, and God walked with them in some difficult times. Don didn't want to be a burden, and he didn't say very much about what he was going through, no matter how hard it was. Gentle and faithful, love for God, supporting God's mission. These are the qualities of Don and Hilda. We have several who are going to come and share their memories of Don, and I'm not going to come up and introduce each of them, but they have a list and they know where they are in this little progression, and we'll start out with Greg.